Alright, so you may have never heard of a homeostatic line, but the most important thing to learn about first is homeostasis, so we can start to tell you about the homeostatic line. So my favorite thing you're going to see here is that it says, the underappreciated and far too often ignored central organizing principle of physiology. Hashtag homeostasis. So we're going to go through a couple research papers here, and I'm going to read you some snippets. You're more than welcome to read through these research papers. Check out some of the books that we're going to refer to here as well. And then we've also created our own version of a homeostatic line, which is going to go over the definitions. It's going to give you books. It's going to give you links to research papers. We're going to quantify all of this for you. But if you haven't noticed by now, I love making videos like this to teach you information. So, homeostasis diet, or homeostasis diet. Homeostasis has become the central unifying concept of physiology and is defined as a self-regulating process by which organisms can maintain internal stability while adjusting to changing external conditions. Homeostasis is not static and unvarying. It is a dynamic process that can change internal conditions as required to survive external challenges. It is also important to note that homeostatic regulation is not merely the product of a single negative feedback loop, but reflects the complex interactions of multiple feedback systems that can be modified by higher control centers. So when you're looking at homeostasis in general, you realize when we say a homeostasis diet is not food, it's information. It's because food is only one part of the varying concepts that you would have to understand to be able to maintain a proper version of homeostasis in your body. So think about stress, for instance. You might have the healthiest diet in the world, you might make all the money in the world, but if you have stress, you're missing a very important part of regulating your body's homeostatic mechanics. Conversely, it follows that disruptions of homeostatic mechanics is what also leads to disease, and effective therapy must be directed towards reestablishing these homeostatic conditions. So now we talk about homeostasis, inflammation, and disease susceptibility. You'd want to check out the Masari people here. So obviously, way back in the day, we weren't living very long and we were dying from some very common illnesses. So there's a doctor nowadays, I don't remember the names of these people anymore. They were in books and research papers that I've read a very long time ago. But they said, yeah, be glad that you're a human that can now live long enough to develop heart disease, develop cancers, and die from literally losing your ability to think. So it's kind of like a blessing and a curse that we get to live so long. But you can see here, while modernization has dramatically increased lifespan, it had also witnessed an increase in prevalence of diseases such as obesity, hypertension, and type 2 diabetes. These right here are all simple issues that are happening by not following homeostasis. It is not natural for a human being to become obese. It is not natural to have hypertension. And it is definitely not natural to develop type 2 diabetes due to overconsumption of carbohydrates, promoting insulin resistance, and thus gaining an excess amount of body fat. So if and as you decide to read through these research papers, you're going to realize that a majority of them are going to point towards disruptions in homeostasis as well as an accompaniment of inflammation, where they would say like inflammation is like the root of all disease, or the gut is the reason that all the diseases are happening. But you can see that in these research papers, they always talk about diabetes, they talk about hypertension, they talk about atherosclerosis. Why is heart disease the number one reason for death in the world, or in America at least? And these are the types of conclusions at the bottom of research papers that I kind of enjoy because it's basically a summary. And if you've ever looked into research papers or read research papers, like we're going to go through this one next, you can go all the way to the bottom and you can look obviously at citations, but just go directly to the conclusion and see if that conclusion seems interesting to you. And if that conclusion is interesting, read the entire paper. So you can see right here the clinical significance, which is clinical significance, basically conclusion. All in all, every medical condition can be traced back to the failure at some point in the homeostatic control system, whether it be an inability to detect initial external change, failure of initiating a feedback loop, failure to enact a response to return to the set point, or failure in the set point itself. And if you've never heard of set points, this would be from The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhi. Talks about set points, where there are literal connections to the amount of push-ups you can do and your rate of developing heart disease. And I forget the exact number. Let me grab that real fast. So you're going to notice in a lot of these, I do basic Googles just to show you that a basic Google is where you can start, and then I would tell you in most cases, if it's something like this, you might as well accept it at face value. You're more than welcome to read the books and the research papers. We're going to give you the books and the research papers, aka before I even talk about a homeostatic line, I want you to see research papers just so you can see that there's some issue that had happened in homeostasis in general. Like, you're not doing something that you're supposed to do to maintain a survival process in your body, and therefore you're altering homeostasis in a negative direction and suffering, going further away from the homeostatic line. Like, as you gain more weight, you're creating a research paper called "The Bigger the Belly, the Smaller the Brain," which the visceral belly fat is affecting the hippocampus. So the memory and learning center is actually suffering as you consume more food. So a recent study finds that men who can perform at least 40 push-ups in one attempt are much less likely to suffer from heart disease within the next 10 years. And these are Harvard research studies, so you're more than welcome to say Harvard sucks, but read the research and learn about push-ups. But this goes back to the point of set points. So for instance, if you have an inflammatory condition and you have been taking warm showers and you've been eating a very terrible diet, you're altering homeostasis, the inflammation is happening, therefore an autoimmune condition or an inflammatory-based condition is having a much harder time getting back to its balance. So this is where you're going to learn about things called the Wim Hof method, where you be taking cold showers, lowering the overall inflammation, turning on anti-inflammatory cytokines, boosting the immune response. So when it talks about detecting initial external changes, so like right here, it's like, oh, I'm feeling a pain in my body. Yeah, you should probably figure out where that pain's coming from. It's definitely not normal. Failure of initiating a feedback loop. So right here, a feedback loop, initiating a feedback loop. If you have never taken cold showers and you start to take cold showers, that is a very challenging feedback loop to create because it is absolutely cold and you're going to feel terrible feelings when you first start it. Everybody that does the whole ice bath stuff sucks at first, but then eventually, it's just another day where we're doing an ice bath. So failure to enact a response to return to the set point. So same thing right here. A lot of people have not created the proper set points in reality to be able to maintain homeostasis diet. And without those proper set points, what are you choosing to do on a daily basis? Everyone has to exercise. You have to get your heart rate up. Everybody has to eat food. Everybody has to sleep. Everybody is going to wake up tomorrow morning. But the life that you choose to build around this, like the straight line, an object at rest remains at rest in a straight line, or in a constant speed in a straight line unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. You would create unbalance by doing things wrong when you could just continue in a straight line with the correct information the first time around. So, where does this lead us now? So this will be the last research paper that I give you right here, and you're more than welcome to go read into these. Because once you read the books might say some outlandish things. Once you read the research papers, they definitely start to talk about some outlandish things. And the whole goal of giving you this information is actually at the bottom of this page. This is where I reverse engineer a research paper, and I did it for 2 years, where I would depress myself and undepress myself, and then redepress myself and undepress myself, and redepress myself and undepress myself, just to make sure that the information that I'm giving to people not only would change my life, but would also change theirs. Because a lot of people rate change in their life based on the way that they feel. Like if a person has never taken a cold shower and takes a cold shower, they might swear by taking cold showers for the rest of their life. If a person has never fasted and skipped breakfast a day in their life and properly optimizes a fasting schedule, they might think fasting is the most amazing thing that has ever happened. Whenever we change the way that we interact with the world and it creates a positive feedback loop, some people might get addicted to taking cold showers because they never felt that before in their life. Some people might get addicted to fasting because they've never felt running on ketones a day in their life. It's like the person who eats ice cream and says, wow, this is really good. You know, is it the food or is it your actual feedback response to the food itself? So you can see right here, it says both depression and type 2 diabetes are associated with a dysregulation of your HPA axis. So think gut-brain connection. And then BMG axis, think about blood glucose. So like how much is your glucose spiked? Because your glucose is connected to your brain-derived neurotrophin factor, which you're going to see on this one right here where we talk about brain-derived neurotrophin factor. This is going to go over some research to tell you about BDNF, dysregulation of BDNF, mental illnesses. Why do they put BDNF in mental health medications? Well, you're going to find out on here if you're ever interested in that. But these pathways regulate immune function. So if you have issues in dysregulation in your immune function, that's not going to be good for your health. If glucose metabolism's messed up, which means you have a crap ton of glucose in your body, if you don't have the appropriate levels of dietary fiber to glucose when you're eating, you're just spiking your glucose insanely high. You don't have any fiber to slow down the glucose response. Your sleep could be messed up. So you're going to learn about, the book An Elegant Defense here for your immune function, glucose metabolism. You'd learn about the obesity code or the diabesity code by Dr. Jason Fung. Sleep, you would learn about the book called Why We Sleep. And they're altered in both illnesses. So dysregulation of the homeostatic brain-body pathways may be positively influenced through direct therapeutic actions, including psychotherapy, healthy eating, physical activity, sleep, and sleep promotion in certain anti-inflammatory or antidepressant medications, which the whole goal here is to teach you about the homeopathic natural versions of medicine that you can choose to do. If you are suffering from something, there's a high likelihood that you have altered your homeostasis in a negative direction, causing these issues and illnesses to arrive in your life. So for instance, I suffered from anxiety worse than you could possibly imagine. I was afraid to speak out loud. I was the kid that would literally fumble his words if he had to stand up in front of class. Now, I'm not really worried about anybody thinking anything of me. And you're going to learn about meditating an hour every single day for an entire year. We're going to talk about the default mode network. And you're going to find that right here where we talk about meditation, where I guide you into more research papers. Because if you don't believe me and you don't believe the research papers and you don't believe the books, then I believe a person is just looking for a reason to stay the same. To think that, okay, you don't have to be depressed anymore. If you've never actually been depressed and somebody tells you that depression is easy to beat, they have no idea what they're talking about. It's a battle, but you will beat it. With anxiety, it's a battle, but you will beat it. Type 2 diabetes, it's a battle, but you will beat it. You're going to learn that there's a lot of things that we are told, or thoughts that we're taught to think that are not actually true. So I thoroughly encourage you to read through the books, enjoy the homeostatic line research that we've created for you, which is a quantification of books and research papers. But I know a lot of people on the internet are out there just telling you to do things. They're like, yeah, do this. And I'd rather you understand the sources of the information on why we're telling you to do what you do. But you're always going to see in research papers, it says in support, reported symptoms of depression are more common among diabetic patients. Diabetic patients, type 2 diabetes, which is T2DM. They're even talking about T3DM, which is where we're going to get into younger people having dementia. But then you look at disruptors of homeostasis, emotional distress. So meditate a little bit more. Become financially free so you don't have to be stuck in environments and situations that you don't want to be in. One of the most important things you can do for emotional distress is become financially free. And then you're not worried about bills. You're not in a relationship that makes you unhappy. You have enough money to be financially free, live on your own terms. Infection, I can't really talk about infections because I don't know where they're coming from. Inflammation, food, illnesses, the book called End to Illness, inactivity, people not exercising, movement is so important. Poor diet, that's that is the whole point of this. Get your food right, get your mind right, get your money right, get your life right. So medications, antibiotics, and antidepressants, we've taken people off of both of those. If you've been on antibiotics and you've never reinoculated your gut microbiome, and after you've taken those antibiotics, your life kind of never went back to normal, there's an answer for that. Same thing with antidepressants. If you've been taking those and you want to get off of those, there's probably an answer for that. Poor sleep quality, circadian misalignment. Now, let me speak into circadian misalignment really quickly because we don't really have a module that talks about this. But the book Why We Sleep is going to teach you about sleep. You're going to learn about that. But there's something called a host clock gene. And let me just tell you about host clock genes. So now I know that host genes are an intercellular clock keeping system of some sort. It's been a while since I've looked at this, but so based on the intercellular timekeeping system. So this is the physiology and our behaviors. So when you get into Why We Sleep, you start getting into the research, you'll realize that when somebody doesn't sleep enough, they're actually more irritated and stressed being around other people than if they actually had a good night's sleep. So now think about the misalignment that happens in most people's 20s, right? We, in the traditional society that exists, a lot of people end up going to college, they graduate college, the partying has become a part of college. So through Monday through Friday, we have a normal regimented schedule. And then when we're supposed to be going to bed at like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, people go to bed at like 2, 3 a.m. and they're eating before they're sleeping. So they're drinking alcohol to disrupt the gut microbiome community. They're putting crappy, low quality foods into their guts, and then they're going to bed and waking up the next days experiencing lack of proper hydration. So think about this. Throughout the week, we have a pretty decent schedule, but then every weekend we've been built into a feedback loop that absolutely destroys everything that we've been working for that week. And that is a very normal part of our society where, unfortunately, depending on where you live, if you don't go out to the bars, it is very difficult to meet people. And last but not least, you really, really want to be looking at meta-analysis studies. There are 1,000,000,001 studies that are funded by all of the big corporations that'll tell you sugar's not bad for you. Apparently, the new food system that's out or something, I don't know, people are talking about it on the internet. I don't really pay attention to it. But it's like the food pyramid from the government says like Lucky Charms are good for you. I have no idea. I don't really follow that information. Just remember, as fast as it shows up is as fast as it goes away. So there's really no point in you putting your consciousness in those types of areas. I heard about it. I didn't look into it just because when somebody said, oh, Lucky Charms are on a food thing. Okay, great. Not interested. We all know that's garbage by now. So 361 studies conducted over 4 decades. Okay. So 4 decades of research suggest that clinical depression is associated with HPA axis dysregulation through the degree of dysregulation varies significance among patient groups. So please pay attention to the things that you're going to learn in these documents because they have been researched. I do this all day, every single day. The books that you're going to come across, I've read. I thought they were crazy too. The research papers that I find, I thought they were crazy too. But if you decide to apply this information to your life will change. So when you click that link for the homeostatic line, you're going to roll across a page that looks like this because everyone was asking me about books. It's why I sit on TikTok, because I make sure to pay attention to the questions that people ask so we can build hundreds of pages of free resources and give you all of the books to read as well. Please sign up with a real name and a real email address because we will email you these if you do not let the next page load. And then this video right here is going to explain these documents. And then just as you can look at the documents, there's also videos that I record as well going over top of the documents. So you're not responsible for having to read them. You can just kind of look at them and I can talk to you about them. And I'll also give you a little bit of additional information. And if you haven't noticed by now, this website is all about educating you and giving you the resources that you need to be able to improve your life. And let me show you a little fun thing here about the homeostatic line now that I've given you some resources and information. So the way that you would look at this is very simple. So that's totally not the right line right there. 1 second. Let me go ahead and open this up. Remarkables, by the way, totally a great purchase if you are a business owner and you need people to constantly sign transactions. It's also a great way to be able to take a piece of paper and broadcast it over to a video. But what you're looking at here is a simple line. You have 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, and 5 years. So over the next 5 years of time, you have literally 2 options in life. 1, you can improve your life in a positive direction by introducing positive feedback loops, which this isn't showing up. And it's now sitting right here so you can see it. Or 2, you have the option to create negative versions of reality. So this is where if you end up going over to the mindset page, you're going to learn about the positive and negative and neutral variances of reality. So, for instance, a positive thing would be exercise. And a negative thing would be drinking soda and sitting on the couch. We all know that that's wrong. So the homeostatic line is a very obvious system, and they are all mechanical purposes of this system, where if you actually sleep at the right time versus stay awake all night and drink, which one do you think is going to improve the quality of your life over the next 5 years? So now think in terms of this, and this will be the last bit of talk that I'd like to put into you, is think about children, okay? If you're planning on having a child 2 years from now, and that child's genetics are going to be a screen cap of yours where we talk about telomeres down below, would you not want to give that child the best chance of having a better life than you've had? Me personally, I would say that every parent out there in the world would love to improve the quality of their offspring, and I think improving the quality of the offspring is the most important part of human evolution, because we're here to evolve, and if we leave homeostasis by following a negative version of a homeostatic line that we created out of not understanding information, it would not be good for the child. But if we follow a positive version of the homeostatic line, then not only is your life going to be better, but every single person that comes around you's life is going to improve. So by us giving you all of this information for free, we hope that it not only improves your life, but it allows you to improve somebody else's life. Because if I can wake you up to this information and you change your life from it, you're now awake and you can change somebody else's life. So you're going to learn all the mechanics of the homeostatic line, but just think in simple terms. If you could have taken a cold shower, you may have improved the quality of your life. If you continue to take warm showers, they might decrease the quality of your life. If you pay attention to the amount of dietary fiber that you consume, you could be improving your blood glucose levels, which would thus help you with anxiety and brain-derived neurotrophin factor. Or you could continue to overeat and overconsume and decrease the quality of your life. If you choose to add various versions of exercise, not just going to the gym, it is good to go to the gym and generate muscle mass. Muscle mass is only important for anti-aging. After a specific amount of muscle mass, it becomes metabolic waste. I used to be a 220-pound gym bro, biggest dude in my gym, so I can tell you from a health perspective, you will feel way better when you're not 220 pounds and literally blood glucose level out the brain. So you can choose multiple various versions of exercise highlighted in the telomere effect, or you can do the same types of exercises. The choices that we make on a daily basis are compounding interest in the lives that we're creating. So if you recognize that the right words take you to the right place and the wrong words take you to the wrong place, do you want to end up in the right place 5 years from now? Or do you want to end up in the wrong place 5 years from now? Because time is not stopping. Tomorrow is going to be here. And what you choose to do tomorrow is what's going to happen a week, a month, a year, and a decade from now. And of course, we're all going to die from something, but I'd like to live the best possible life that I possibly can while I'm alive. And I also know what it's like to eat garbage. So my lifestyle was garbage. That's why I'm here making these videos for you and giving you all the books and research papers. Just because if I can't convince you by telling you in this video, please change your life, follow this for a year and watch how everything in your life changes. The problems that you thought were real were only problems that you created and made real due to misinformation. I had to deal with all of them. The only reason I was poor is because I didn't understand money. The only reason I was eating garbage is because I didn't understand how much it actually made my brain act like garbage and get sick all the time and sleep on the weekends depressed in my bed. And the only reason I got out of bed, it was to pee, because I didn't want to pee my bed. So you're coming and learning from somebody who was truly at rock bottom and all of these things and had no idea. I have no education. I have no degree. I have no nothing. I just have books and research papers that I've been reading for years and actually studying them like a lab rat, because they won't test them on real people. So I figure test them on myself and find out if they're true. So I'd like to hope you follow the positive version of homeostasis here, and welcome to the homeostatic line, where you have about 5 hours left of videos if you decide to click the link and watch all those videos and learn all the information. But I will see you in the next video, duh. And if you need anything, you can book a call at the bottom of the page. You can work with our coaches. See you in the next video. Bye.